This story is titled, My Ex-Fiancée Screamed at Me in a Restaurant About How Much She Hates Me and Emphasized How Poor I Am. I stayed silent, but a week later delivered a detailed invoice of her outstanding debts. Now she's borrowing from her rich husband to pay me back. Hey Reddit, my name is Marcus, and I'm 29 years old. I work as an HVS and electrical contractor and own my own business here in Miami. I live in a decent townhouse in a middle-class neighborhood. Nothing particularly fancy, but it's comfortable and I'm financially stable. I've always been methodical about money, carefully tracking budgets, investments, and maintaining emergency funds. My dad taught me early on to track every dollar or watch them disappear, and that solid advice has served me well throughout my life. When my fiancée Victoria, who was 26 at the time, got accepted into veterinary school, we were 7 years into our relationship and had just gotten engaged. Both of us saw this as our big break, the opportunity we'd been waiting for. We had our wedding planned for just 1 month after her graduation. Honeymoon deposits already paid for a trip to the Bahamas, and our future mapped out with dreams of a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. Then, reality hit us like a freight train. The veterinary school program costs were absolutely insane. $38,000 per year for 4 years, plus books, fees, and living expenses. Her scholarships only covered maybe 18% of the total cost. Despite her parents constantly name-dropping their supposed connections and status in the medical community, the truth was they were barely making ends meet themselves. Victoria's parents were completely obsessed with appearances and social climbing, but it was all smoke and mirrors. Her dad drove a leased BMW he couldn't afford, and her mom was constantly talking about being on the verge of landing some big interior design contract that never materialized. They lived in a house that was mortgaged to the hilt, threw lavish dinner parties with expensive catering, then quietly ate instant noodles for 2 weeks afterward to recover financially. They were a complete financial disaster masked by designer clothes and social media posts showing fake prosperity. That's when I decided to step up. Between my HVAC business and taking on weekend emergency calls, I could cover most of her expenses. This meant working 65-hour weeks for me, sometimes stretching to 75 hours when big commercial projects came in. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. to be on site by 5:30, work until 7 p.m., then take emergency calls until 1 a.m. some nights. The money was good, but the grind was absolutely brutal. Victoria always called it our future investment whenever she asked for money, and I tracked every single transfer like the spreadsheet guy I am. This wasn't charity. She constantly texted me things like, "First big veterinary check, paying you back every dollar with interest," and "Then we're upgrading our wedding venue." I saved all those texts, not from distrust, but because I'm naturally meticulous with money. I always have been. I still remember the night I made the decision to cash out my retirement account to cover her third-year tuition. It was $2,900 plus the early withdrawal penalty. I was sitting on my balcony and Victoria was crying about potentially having to drop out of the program. "I can't ask you to do that," she said, while very clearly asking me to do exactly that. I told her, "It's an investment in us. Just remember this when you're making the big bucks." She promised, "I'll pay back every cent with interest," and suddenly brightened up. "Veterinarians at Miami Animal Hospital start at $135,000, she said excitedly. "We'll be set." 2 days later, the money was transferred into her tuition account. That same month, I had to skip my cousin's destination wedding in Costa Rica because I couldn't afford both expenses. When Victoria asked why I wasn't going, I just told her I had project deadlines. There was no point in making her feel bad about a decision I had made willingly. Every semester followed the exact same pattern. Victoria would send me links to her tuition portal, I'd transfer $19,000, and she'd promise repayment with detailed plans about our future together. This went on for 4 years straight. The total amount came to about $86,000. For me, it meant countless 75-hour work weeks, 0 vacations, and endless, "sorry can't make it," got an emergency call responses to friends and family. Meanwhile, Victoria's Instagram feed was constantly full of study breaks at upscale restaurants with her veterinary school friends, weekend trips to her parents' beach house, and posts about how self-care is essential during school. It was funny how her idea of self-care always involved spending money, while mine involved making it. My best friend Derek saw through the situation early on. We were shooting pool at our usual bar when he finally said what I didn't want to hear. "Dude, you realize you've spent more on her school than your truck, townhouse down payment, and retirement combined," he said while lining up a shot. Meanwhile, she's posting Instagram stories from weekend trips with her vet school girls. It's an investment, I insisted. Once she's licensed, we're set. Derek sank the 8-ball and looked at me dead on. Just saying, I've never seen her post about how great you are for funding her future. Lot of posts about those diamond earrings her parents got her, though. I brushed him off at the time. Derek's always been cynical. Divorced parents, 4 failed relationships, and a job as a divorce attorney that only reinforced his negative views on relationships. The guy literally makes his living from failed marriages, so of course he sees red flags everywhere. Still, his comment stuck with me. Just keep the receipts, he said while ordering another round. And maybe stop turning down emergency calls to go to her family dinners when they still treat you like the hired help. I rolled my eyes, but I followed his advice on keeping the receipts. I also took his suggestion about the emergency calls seriously. Eventually, Kevin, my business partner, noticed the insane hours I was putting in. We'd started the HVAC company right out of trade school and built it from nothing to 18 employees with a solid reputation throughout Miami. He knew something was off when I missed our quarterly business planning session for the first time in 8 years. "Everything okay with you and Victoria?" he asked, leaning against our service van while we waited for parts. "Haven't seen her at our company barbecues lately." "She's busy with clinical rotations," I explained. "Final year is really intense." Kevin nodded, but I caught the look on his face. He'd been through something similar with his ex-wife. "Just make sure you're taking care of yourself too, man. Business is booming, but you look exhausted. When's the last time you slept more than 5 hours?" I honestly couldn't remember. Between emergency calls, regular jobs, and driving to Victoria's campus to bring her Thai food during late study sessions, sleep had become completely optional. But we were so close to the finish line. 4 years of investment was about to pay off. Just a few more months of grinding, then she'd graduate, we'd get married, and life would finally start for real. Looking back now, I should have seen the warning signs much earlier. Around year 3, Victoria stopped talking about our future together. She stopped mentioning repayment plans entirely and started referring to my career instead of our investment. She began spending significantly more time with her veterinary school friends and less time with me. But I chalked it all up to the stress of final rotations and board preparation. I was too busy working to notice that she was actively pulling away from our relationship. 1 month before graduation and 6 weeks before our wedding, Victoria hit me with the "I need space to focus on finals and boards" conversation. She said she needed to temporarily move back to her parents' place to concentrate on studying. It made sense, I guess. Veterinary boards are notoriously brutal. I even helped move some of her things over there, telling myself this was just temporary. I wanted to support her during this crucial time, so I ordered a study gift basket to be delivered to her parents' house. It cost $250 and was filled with high-end snacks, energy drinks, and a new set of highlighters in her favorite colors. The note I included read, "You've got this home stretch." Then came the text message that completely changed everything. 4 days after graduation, I received this. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks for paying my vet school tuition. My new man Blake thinks you're pathetic for investing in a woman clearly out of your league. Thanks for the free education. Enjoy your sad little life, lol." I stared at my phone feeling like I'd been hit by a freight truck. The winky emoji, the LOL, she wasn't just dumping me a month before our wedding. She was actively mocking me for financing her entire professional future. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. I immediately checked her Instagram account. There she was, arms wrapped around some guy in a perfectly tailored suit, standing in front of what looked like a luxury high-rise apartment building. The caption read, "Upgrade complete, y'all vet school grad. Yash blessed e moving up." My first instinct was to drive straight to her parents' house and confront her. My second, much calmer thought was to develop a strategy. I've never been the type to lose my cool, not when a contractor tried to screw us on a major job, not when a client refused to pay a $25,000 invoice, and not even when my truck was stolen last year. I take my time, carefully assess the situation, and then execute a well-thought-out plan. So instead of reacting emotionally, I typed back a simple, "You're welcome." Then I spent the entire weekend methodically gathering evidence and cataloging my records. Rather than losing it, I focused on documenting everything I had. I pulled together bank transfers to Victoria that were clearly labeled vet school tuition, cashier's checks made out directly to her university, screenshots of text message exchanges discussing our loan arrangement, and email threads about repayment plans. The total came to exactly $86,247.83, and I had documentation for every single cent. I created a comprehensive spreadsheet tracking each payment with dates, confirmation numbers, and corresponding promises from Victoria about repayment. While I didn't have a formal signed loan agreement, I had over 25 separate text message and email threads where she explicitly promised to repay me in full with interest. I printed out bank statements, highlighted all the transfers, and organized them chronologically in a 3-ring binder. I even had witnesses. Derek had heard Victoria promise repayment multiple times, and she'd mentioned it to Kevin at our company Christmas party the previous year. One text message from her 3rd year stood out particularly clearly. "OMG, babe, you are literally saving my life. That $19,000 for this semester just cleared. I promise on everything I love, I'll pay you back every penny with interest when I'm making $135,000 as a veterinary specialist. You're investing in us, in me." My response had been, "I know we're a team, partners in everything." Her reply, "Exactly, partners in everything. Once I'm licensed, we're upgrading your whole life. New truck, maybe even move to a better neighborhood. Your HVAC grind is almost over." Looking back at that text exchange now, I realized she'd been planning her exit strategy for years. Her comment about my HVAC grind being almost over wasn't about me retiring early or us building a life together. It was about her trading up once she had the credentials and professional status she needed. I had just been the stepping stone, the sucker who funded her ascension while she looked around for someone she considered more worthy. I called Derek immediately after organizing all my documentation. "She dumped you," he said, and he didn't sound surprised at all, just resigned to what he'd apparently seen coming. "It's worse than that," I told him. "She texted to thank me for paying her way through school and said her new rich boyfriend thinks I'm pathetic." There was a long pause on the other end. "Tell me you kept the receipts, Marcus." "Every single one." "Send me everything. I'm calling in a favor with Patricia at Westbrook Legal. She specializes in debt recovery cases." Armed with my comprehensive file of evidence, I drafted an email that was professional, cold, and precise. The subject line read, "Outstanding financial obligations for DVM program." The body was straightforward. "Victoria, following your recent text message, I'm writing regarding repayment of the $86,247.83 I provided for your veterinary program, which we repeatedly agreed you would repay in full. Given your recent graduation, please provide your repayment proposal within 5 business days. Otherwise, I'll pursue formal debt recovery options. Regards, Marcus." I attached a detailed spreadsheet showing every payment with dates, confirmation numbers, and corresponding text message promises. The ball was now in her court. Let's see what Blake, the rich new boyfriend, thought about inheriting an $86,000 debt along with his new girlfriend. 4 days later, Victoria called me, practically shrieking into the phone. "Are you actually insane?" "Hello, Victoria," I replied calmly. "I take it you received my email." "That money was obviously a gift. You were my fiancé. That's what men do when they love someone. They support their future wife's dreams. You never once said I had to pay it back." This was classic gaslighting, coming from the same woman who had literally texted me, "I'll pay you back every penny with interest," at least 30 times over 4 years. Actually, Victoria, we discussed repayment at least 30 times. I have multiple texts, emails, and witnesses who heard you explicitly promise to repay every dollar with interest. "You're just pathetic and jealous," she screamed. "Blake makes 4 times what you do at his investment firm. He said your little email is basically extortion, and he's talking to his family's lawyer about it. Requesting repayment of a documented financial agreement isn't extortion, Victoria. And I'm sure Blake, as an investment professional, understands loans and financial obligations. His opinion, however, is completely irrelevant to our agreement." She hung up on me. 3 hours later, her father called. "What kind of sick game are you playing? Trying to extort money from my daughter after breaking her heart?" "Wait, what?" I was genuinely confused. "Mr. Wilson, I provided Victoria substantial financial support under an explicit agreement that she would repay it. And I didn't break anyone's heart. She ended our engagement via text message 4 days after graduation. That's not what she told us. Regardless, Blake comes from an excellent family with significant resources. They don't need your working-class money. Drop this vindictive crusade immediately." He hung up before I could respond. It sounded like they were banking heavily on Blake's wealth, perhaps more than he was actually aware of or willing to commit to. It was like entering the Twilight Zone. According to Victoria and her family, I was now the villain in this story. The jealous ex-boyfriend trying to extort money from an innocent woman. The level of delusion was absolutely unbelievable. Then I started receiving a series of Instagram direct messages from Victoria's cousin Heather. Wow, real small man energy trying to ruin Victoria's life because she finally found someone worthy of her. So desperate and creepy. Blake's family has connections that can end you. The alternate reality they were all living in was absolutely staggering. Victoria then followed up with an email. Fine, I'll give you $7,000 to go away. One-time offer, take it or leave it. I'm being extremely generous considering you offered to help me through school. $7,000 on an $86,000 debt. She was completely delusional. That's like offering to pay off your mortgage with a restaurant gift card. The next day, my phone rang from an unknown number. Is this the guy who used to date Victoria? The male voice was dripping with practiced condescension. Who's asking? Blake. Look, I understand you're upset about Victoria choosing me, but this sad attempt at extorting money from her is just pitiful. That's an interesting perspective, I replied, keeping my voice completely neutral. My family manages 9 figures. I drive something that costs more than your yearly income. So you're calling to pay her debt then? There was a pause. What? No, that's not. I'm telling you to back off as a courtesy. A courtesy that doesn't actually solve the problem. Got it. Look, his voice lowered, suddenly much less certain. Victoria's having a hard time with this. She's mentioned some things about the amount. $86,000. Every penny documented that I supplied, plus interest. Jesus Christ, I heard him exhale. That's ridiculous. No way she owes. I have documentation for every dollar. Texts, emails, witnesses. Would you like me to send you the file? Maybe you could review it given your financial expertise. Silence. Or you could pay it, I continued, since you just mentioned your family's 9-figure portfolio. That's not my responsibility, he snapped, his facade completely gone. I'm not covering her ex's claims. So you're calling to do what exactly? Flex your wealth while simultaneously refusing to use it? Very helpful, Blake. Listen, you little… No, you listen. I have a documented agreement with Victoria. Your family's portfolio is irrelevant unless you're putting it behind her obligations. If you'd like to pay her debt, I'll send you wiring instructions. Otherwise, we have nothing to discuss. You think you're so clever, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I think I know exactly what I'm dealing with, I replied calmly, and hung up. The phone call with Blake confirmed everything I had suspected. He talked a big game but wasn't about to drop $86,000 on Victoria's pre-relationship debt. His carefully constructed image had cracked in under 2 minutes once he was actually pressed on the issue. All show, no substance whatsoever. He was exactly the kind of guy who brags about his daddy's money but mysteriously can't pick up the check when it actually arrives. I forwarded Victoria's insulting email offer to Derek, who replied within minutes. They think you're bluffing. Rich people always think the rules don't apply to them. Time to show your cards. I responded to Victoria's email with $7,000 for a debt of $86,247.83 is neither reasonable nor reflective of our numerous documented agreements. Given your DVM credential and earning potential, which you frequently cited while discussing repayment, I'm open to a structured repayment plan. If we can't reach an agreement within 7 days, I'll pursue legal remedies. This may include actions affecting your credit score and potentially trigger a character and fitness review by the veterinary board. The veterinary board review point was something Derek had discovered during his research. Character and fitness reviews are standard procedure for professionals who handle controlled substances. Financial impropriety, especially breaking explicit financial agreements, can trigger investigations. I wasn't necessarily trying to harm her career, but she needed to understand the potential consequences of her actions. I researched the issue further and found a recent case in reapplication of Jessica Torres, where the state veterinary board had delayed a new graduate's license for 8 months pending review of financial misconduct allegations. I attached the case summary to my email to Victoria. 7 business days passed with complete silence from Victoria. Instead, I received a certified letter from Blackwell Richardson and Associates, attorneys at law. It was pure intimidation tactics, claiming that my baseless allegations, gifts freely given, and harassment constituted malicious interference with career prospects. They demanded I cease all communication or face significant legal consequences. Derek actually laughed when I showed him the letter. They hired the expensive, threatening letterhead guy. Classic move when you're completely full of shit but want to scare someone off. I took their letter along with my entire evidence file to Patricia, the debt recovery specialist Derek had recommended. She spent 3 full hours meticulously going through my documentation, occasionally nodding or making notes in the margins. "Your documentation is absolutely impeccable," she finally said. "Their letter is primarily intimidation with minimal legal substance. Their threats against you are largely unenforceable given the strength of your position." She drafted a formal demand letter that gave Victoria 21 days to pay in full or agree to a reasonable repayment plan. Otherwise, civil proceedings would commence immediately. The letter was direct and professional, citing specific legal precedents and outlining the strength of my position. No bluffing, no intimidation, just cold, hard facts. 3 days after the letter was delivered, I got a call to my business phone that made my stomach drop. "Can you come to the office?" asked Janet, who handles our customer service. When I arrived, she looked extremely uncomfortable. "We've received a complaint about you using business resources to harass a former partner," she said, sliding a printout across the desk. It showed emails from my work account to Victoria, but they had been carefully edited with key parts about repayment agreements removed to make it look like I was just an angry ex-boyfriend lashing out about being dumped. "These have been completely altered," I said immediately. "I have the originals and can prove it." Janet looked visibly relieved. I suspected something was off. The complaint came from someone who doesn't even use our services, a Mr. Wilson. "He's demanding we terminate your business license for harassment conducted during business hours." I showed Janet the complete email thread from my personal account, along with the documented payment history and Victoria's original text messages promising repayment. "Jesus," she muttered after reviewing everything. "They're really trying to get you shut down over this." "Apparently so." "Well, this complaint is officially dismissed, and I'd suggest keeping all correspondence with these people. They seem extremely problematic." That night, I told Derek about the business complaint. "They're getting desperate," he said, taking a swig of his beer. "They tried intimidation, then bribery. Now they're trying to mess with your livelihood. What's next? Claiming you were abusive?" His words turned out to be disturbingly prophetic. The next day, I received an email from one of our major commercial clients, a property management company that used our services exclusively for 20 buildings throughout Miami. "We've received concerning information about potential legal issues involving your company. Can you please clarify the situation regarding harassment allegations?" Someone had reached out to my clients directly. This was crossing a serious line. I immediately called the property manager and explained the situation truthfully, offering to show him all the documentation if necessary. He sighed heavily. "Look, I figured it was complete bullshit. The email came from some random Gmail account claiming to be a concerned citizen. I know you personally. You're not the type. But I had to ask." "I completely appreciate that," I told him. "There's an ongoing financial dispute with my ex-fiancée. She's attempting to avoid repaying a significant loan by creating diversions and false narratives." "Been there," he said dryly. "My ex-wife tried to get me fired during our divorce proceedings. Keep doing quality work and we're good." The crisis was averted, but I was absolutely furious. They were now actively trying to destroy my business reputation to avoid paying a completely legitimate debt. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about principle and protecting everything I had worked to build. A mutual friend from college, Jessica, reached out to me after hearing contradicting stories about what had happened. I showed her the actual text message from Victoria and my complete evidence file. "Jesus, that's incredibly cold," she said after reading Blake's involvement. "He does have family money, but he's notorious for being extremely controlling with it. His last girlfriend had to account for every dollar he invested in their relationship. Unless it makes him look good socially, I seriously doubt he's eager to cover her pre-existing debts." That confirmed my suspicion that Victoria and her parents were grossly overestimating Blake's willingness to bankroll her financial messes. They thought they'd found their golden ticket, but in reality they had just traded one financial obligation for another, potentially more controlling one. Jessica offered another crucial insight. Blake's dad actually cut his trust fund last year. He talks a big game, but his wallet doesn't always back it up anymore. After my lawyer's demand letter arrived, I received an email from a different attorney, Jennifer Sanderson at Greystone Legal Partners. This one had a notably different tone from the previous intimidation attempt. "Ms. Wilson wishes to address this matter discreetly as she's concerned about professional ramifications." And then came yet another insulting offer. "Without any admission of liability, we propose a one-time settlement payment of $18,000. $18,000 on an $86,000 debt." After that cruel text message, it was absolutely offensive. That's like crashing someone's brand new Tesla and offering to pay for a car wash. I forwarded the offer to Derek, who replied immediately, "The rich boyfriend probably said not my problem and now they're scrambling. Hold the line." I was about to respond when Kevin, my business partner, pulled me aside at our shop. "I just got off the phone with someone claiming to be your ex's lawyer," he said, looking genuinely concerned. "They're saying they're going to file a restraining order against you for workplace harassment. Something about you stalking her at her job." My blood ran completely cold. "That's absolutely false. I haven't been anywhere near her." Kevin nodded firmly. "I figured as much, but they're claiming they have a witness who saw your work truck parked outside her veterinary clinic last week. They're threatening to contact our clients about having an unstable contractor working on projects. I was in Atlanta last week for the HVAC convention. The whole crew saw me there." "Good, I've got your back on this completely, but document everything with these people. They're playing extremely dirty." That night I met Derek at our usual bar. I was beyond angry at this point. "They're trying to systematically destroy my reputation," I said, my voice shaking slightly with rage. "False business complaints, fake stalking allegations. What the hell is wrong with these people?" Derek set down his drink and looked at me seriously. "They're trying to make defending yourself more trouble than it's worth. It's a classic abuser tactic called DARVO: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. They know they're completely wrong, so they're trying to make you the villain in the story. I just wanted what's legitimately mine. And that's exactly what you're going to get," Derek said firmly. "This desperate behavior just proves they know they'll lose badly in court. They wouldn't be fighting this dirty otherwise." I replied to Ms. Sanderson with, "Your client's offer of $18,000 against an $86,247.83 debt is rejected. Ms. Wilson's current anxiety stems from her decision to renege on clearly established financial commitments, followed by her deliberately taunting message. Additionally, I'm aware of false complaints made to my business and fabricated stalking allegations. These constitute defamation and potential criminal false reporting. My terms haven't changed. Full amount plus interest, 21 days. Otherwise, I'll file a civil claim and report all false allegations to appropriate authorities." I attached proof of my Atlanta trip, including hotel receipts, convention badge photos, and contact information for multiple witnesses who could verify my whereabouts during the time I was allegedly stalking her. Let them try to claim I was stalking her while I was physically in another state with dozens of witnesses. A week before the 21-day deadline expired, I received another email from Jennifer. After further consideration, Ms. Wilson proposes a structured settlement of $52,000 to be paid over 6 years without interest. This represents a substantial portion of the claimed amount and offers a reasonable resolution to avoid protracted legal proceedings for both parties. From "it was obviously a gift" to "here's $52,000. That was significant progress, but still substantially short of what was owed. No interest despite her explicit promises, and a 6-year term was completely unacceptable. I consulted with Patricia about this new offer. Her assessment was straightforward. They know they're in a very weak position. The increment from $18,000 to $52,000 in just 1 week tells me they're expecting to pay the full amount eventually. Stand firm." I replied to Ms. Sanderson, "The offer is insufficient. My position is non-negotiable. Full principal of $86,247.83. Standard interest at market rate, 36-month maximum repayment with acceleration clause for missed payments. These terms align with Ms. Wilson's own repeated commitments. I've now documented multiple attempts to harm my business and reputation through false claims. Any further such actions will be addressed in court. You have 5 business days to accept these terms." 5 incredibly tense days passed with complete silence. I prepared court filings with Patricia, and we were ready to file the moment the deadline passed. At 4:47 p.m. on the final day, an email finally arrived. Following consultation with our client, we conditionally accept the core terms. Principal, $86,247.83. Interest, fixed 5% from graduation date. Repayment period, 36 months. Acceleration clause with 10-day cure period. Conditional upon confidentiality provisions. The fundamental demands were accepted. They knew they couldn't win this fight. All the posturing, threats, and manipulations had completely failed. I replied to the acceptance email. "The proposed terms are acceptable pending review of the draft agreement. Please forward documentation." A week later, I signed the final settlement agreement. Victoria had refused to be present for the signing, sending her lawyer instead to handle everything. That was perfectly fine by me. I had absolutely no desire to see her either. The whole process felt like closing a business transaction, which is exactly what it was. Jessica informed me that Victoria had passed her veterinary boards, but Blake, the wealthy new boyfriend, was reportedly furious about all the financial drama. He had completely refused to get involved, making it crystal clear that her debts were entirely her problem to solve. Victoria hadn't secured the prestigious animal hospital position she'd constantly boasted about during school. Instead, she ended up taking a retail veterinary job at a pet store chain, a far cry from the $135,000 starting salary she'd promised would fund our future. The settlement would require approximately $2,650 in monthly payments after taxes, on top of her own federal student loans and living expenses. Her parents and cousins suddenly became unavailable for comment. There were no more threats about ending me or lectures about how I wasn't worthy of their daughter. It was amazing how quickly they all disappeared once their bluff was called and they faced real consequences. It's been 16 months since the settlement agreement was signed. The terms are legally binding: $86,147.83 principal, 5% fixed interest, 36 months, $2,950 monthly payment. Victoria has made every single payment so far, 16 payments down, 20 to go. She always pays exactly on the final day before default, never a day earlier. My HVAC business has expanded dramatically during this time. We've grown fast, adding new service vans, hiring additional technicians, and picking up a retiring firm's entire client base. I even took my first real vacation in 6 years. 3 weeks in New Zealand, completely off-grid with no emergency calls, no spreadsheets, just mountains and hiking trails. It was exactly what I needed. I've completely restored my retirement accounts and made some solid investments in rental properties. I even started a small side business handling commercial property maintenance contracts. It turns out I didn't need Victoria's veterinary salary to build a successful future. I just needed to stop bankrolling someone else's dreams at the expense of my own. What about Victoria's situation now? According to Jessica, Blake left her just 4 months after the settlement was signed. His parting comment at a mutual friend's dinner party was brutally direct. "I'm not interested in subsidizing someone else's financial train wreck." So much for her meal ticket and upgrade to a better life. Her career consists of retail veterinary work at a suburban pet store chain, working night shifts and weekend rotations. This is nothing like the clinical animal hospital position with 6-figure guaranteed advancement she'd planned on and talked about constantly. Now she lives in a 1-bedroom apartment with a roommate to afford the rent. Her parents, who once pretended to have connections despite barely making rent themselves, quietly cut ties once Blake bailed and the lawsuit became reality. Then, just when I thought this whole ordeal was completely over, things took an unexpected and disturbing turn. About 6 months into the payment plan, I started noticing small, strange things happening. I'd get missed calls at 3 a.m. from blocked numbers with no voicemail left behind. Then another call the next night, same pattern. A week later, I found a coffee cup from our old favorite cafe sitting on my car hood in the morning. Nothing else, just the cup sitting there like some kind of message. 2 days after that, a delivery of roses showed up at my door with no card attached. When I called the florist to ask about it, they confirmed that a woman matching Victoria's description had paid cash for the delivery. I installed a doorbell camera system and caught her circling my building 4 nights straight at 2:30 a.m. She would just walk around the parking lot, sometimes stopping to stare up at my unit for several minutes before leaving. I showed Derek the security footage. "This is getting into restraining order territory," he said, frowning at the screen. "She's clearly losing it." Then the text messages started coming from different unknown phone numbers, always late at night. "Do you think about us? I made a mistake. We should talk. You can't ignore me forever." I never responded to any of them. I just documented everything meticulously, added each new number to my block list, saved screenshots, and forwarded everything to Patricia. This wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was escalating into something potentially dangerous. 4 months ago, the situation escalated dramatically. Victoria showed up at my townhouse building at 10:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Security footage showed her pacing outside for 25 minutes before somehow convincing a resident to let her into the building. She was visibly agitated, her hands shaking as she pounded on my door. Thankfully, my building has solid security cameras that captured everything. I opened the door but stayed firmly in the doorway, not letting her inside. "What are you doing here, Victoria?" "We need to talk," she said, her eyes red and puffy. "This payment plan is destroying me. I can't live like this anymore." "That sounds like exactly what a loan repayment is supposed to be. Your responsibility." "I'm begging you," she started crying. Lower the payments, extend the term, something, anything. For a split second, I almost felt a twinge of sympathy. Then I remembered the business complaint, the fake stalking allegations, and her systematic attempt to destroy my reputation. The agreement stands, I said firmly. Leave, or I'll call the police. Her expression shifted instantly from pleading to pure rage. You think you're so smart? She hissed, trying to push past me into my apartment. I blocked the doorway completely. Leave now, Victoria. I'll tell everyone you abused me, she threatened. I'll say you threatened me into signing that agreement. I'll go to your clients and tell them you're stalking me. Who do you think they'll believe? The pretty veterinarian or the dirty contractor? And there it was, the mask completely off, revealing the same person who had sent that cruel text message. Every word of this conversation is being recorded, I said quietly, by building security and by me. I've documented every drive-by, every anonymous text, every flower delivery. You're not the victim here, Victoria. She blinked, momentarily thrown off balance by my calm response. You said I was pathetic for investing in you, I continued, my voice perfectly level. Turns out I was just early to the liquidation. She tried to access my unit 4 more times that weekend. Security caught all of it on camera. The following Tuesday, she appeared at my workplace, creating a massive scene in the shop until my employees had to physically remove her. She was ranting about how I'd ruined her life and stolen her future. My office manager, Angela, recorded the whole incident on her phone while Kevin called the police. By the time they arrived, she had already left, but the damage was done. My employees were genuinely shaken by the experience. I had to call an emergency meeting to explain the situation, minus the embarrassing personal details. I just told them that my ex owed me money, was refusing to pay according to our agreement, and was now harassing me. They were supportive, but I could see the concern in their faces. This wasn't just affecting me anymore, it was affecting my business and my entire team. Derek didn't mince words when I told him what happened. Get a restraining order yesterday. This isn't about money anymore, she's completely unhinged. Patricia helped me file for a temporary restraining order, which was granted based on the security footage, the workplace incident, and the threatening text messages Victoria had been sending. Messages like, "You'll regret this," and "I know where you sleep." 2 weeks later, the judge made it permanent for 1 year, citing Victoria's concerning pattern of escalation and her inability to respect basic boundaries. The restraining order includes provisions that our only communication must be through our respective attorneys regarding the settlement payments. She's barred from coming within 500 feet of my home, workplace, or person. Any violation would result in potential criminal charges. The day after the restraining order was granted, her father called me again. This time, his tone was completely different from his previous threatening calls. "I just want to understand what's happening with my daughter," he said, sounding tired and much older. "The restraining order. Is it really necessary?" Mr. Wilson, she showed up at my home at 10:30 p.m., tried to force her way inside, and threatened to falsely accuse me of abuse. Then she came to my business and created a scene that frightened my employees. What would you have done? There was a long silence on the other end. I don't know what's happened to her. She's not the person we raised. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. She's an adult who made choices. Now she's facing the consequences. I'm sorry it's affecting your family, but my priority has to be protecting myself and my business. I understand, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about all this. It was too little, too late. But I appreciated the gesture nonetheless. Life has actually improved dramatically since all this went down. I'm dating Nicole, a structural engineer I met through a client. She knows the outline of what happened with Victoria, and her take was refreshingly direct. She sounds like a complete narcissist. You dodged artillery fire, not just a bullet. We had sushi tonight. Simple, authentic, perfect. Nicole doesn't play games or send cryptic text messages. She doesn't expect me to finance her life or solve all her problems. She's professionally successful, emotionally stable, and refreshingly direct about what she wants. Derek's assessment was characteristically less diplomatic. You paid $86,000 to discover she was garbage before you married her. Cheapest divorce you'll never have. He's absolutely right. That money was ultimately the price of my freedom. Had I actually married Victoria, the financial damage would have been far worse. Not to mention the emotional toll of being tied to someone who viewed me as nothing more than a stepping stone to something better. About 2 months ago, I made another excellent decision and adopted a rescue dog. He's a 4-year-old German Shepherd mix named Rex, who has been incredibly loyal and protective. We go running every morning and he sleeps by my bedroom door at night. It's been one of the best decisions I've made in years. Rex was actually a police K-9 washout, too friendly for the job according to his former handler. But his training makes him an excellent companion. He's disciplined, responsive, and has an uncanny ability to read people and situations. Having him around has given me an extra sense of security during this whole ordeal. The money from Victoria's monthly payments goes straight into a dedicated investment account. I'm actually planning to use it as seed funding for expanding the HVAC business with Kevin next year. Turning her debt into my future success feels like perfect poetic justice. There's something deeply satisfying about using the money that was supposed to fund her future to build mine instead. The most surprising development came from Victoria's father just last week. He approached me at a local coffee shop, looking much older and more worn down than I remembered. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "We believed what Victoria told us about you. She's not well. She's seeing a therapist now, which is long overdue." He handed me his business card. "If you ever need anything, please call. And thank you for not pressing charges over the stalking. You could have made things much worse for her." I didn't tell him that the restraining order was already the merciful option, that I had enough evidence for criminal charges of harassment, stalking, and false reporting, that his daughter was lucky I'd chosen the least destructive path available to me. I just nodded and told him I hoped she got the help she needed. And I meant it. Not for her sake, but for anyone else who might cross her path in the future. As I left the coffee shop, I realized I no longer felt angry when I thought about Victoria. Just a vague sense of pity mixed with relief that she was no longer my problem. The money was coming in according to the agreement, and that was all that mattered to me now. For anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation, my advice is straightforward. Document absolutely everything. Save text messages, keep receipts, maintain witnesses to conversations. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Victoria wanted me to enjoy my sad little life lol. Well, I am enjoying it. I take weekly hikes with Rex, have regular date nights with Nicole, and receive monthly bank transfers from my ex. Life is genuinely good. I've learned that the people who truly matter will stick around during the hard times, while the users and manipulators will reveal themselves when the money stops flowing their way. Derek was right to be cynical from the beginning. Kevin was right to be concerned about my exhaustion. Even Jessica, who barely knew the full story, could see through Victoria's act immediately. The whole experience taught me that financial boundaries are just as important as emotional ones. When someone consistently takes from you while promising future returns, pay attention to their actions, not their words. Victoria spent 4 years making promises she never intended to keep, all while planning her exit strategy. The most ironic part is that her plan backfired spectacularly. She thought she was trading up to Blake and his family money, but ended up worse off than if she'd just honored our original agreement. Now she's stuck making payments to me while working night shifts at a pet store, living with a roommate, and dealing with the consequences of her choices. Meanwhile, I've rebuilt everything stronger than before. My business is thriving, my personal life is stable, and I have a clear understanding of my own worth. The $86,000 investment turned out to be the best money I ever spent. Not because it funded her education, but because it revealed her true character before I married her. Some people might say I was too harsh or that I should have just written off the money. But respect is earned through actions, not granted through relationships. Victoria chose to mock and humiliate me after I funded her entire professional future. She chose to lie to her family and friends about our agreement. She chose to try to destroy my business and reputation rather than honor her commitments. Every choice has consequences. She's learning that now, $2,650 at a time. So that's the complete story. Writing this out has been incredibly therapeutic and helped me process everything that happened. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply holding people accountable for their actions and moving forward with your life. Peace out, everyone. Thanks for reading.